Welcome to Grit and Gravitas with Ann and Annie, bringing you savvy, spirited stories of success. We're excited to deliver 30 minutes of inspiration, impact, and goodness. We'll be bringing you guests and friends from around the country who have very special work and personal journeys. I'm Ann Deeter Gallaher, your co-host with Annie Carnathan, and this is Grit and Gravitas. Let's go! Welcome to the Grit and Gravitas podcast studio. Annie Carnathan, we have an amazing special guest today. This is episode 14. We've passed the high water mark.
It's incredible what traction this has gotten, the impact this has had. Can't agree with you more about our powerful guest, and I just feel like what an embarrassment of riches for the people that have agreed to sit down and spend time with us. So we're back at it. We might as well be awesome.
Yeah. So Patti Husic, President and CEO of Centric Bank. I don't know anyone in Pennsylvania that would not know your name, but we are honored to have you join us. And we're collecting a pretty impressive group of women in high gear. You're at the top of that list, and we're super excited to have you. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Annie. I am so excited to be here today with both of you and to enjoy our conversations. And for me, this was Home Run Friday to do this. So thank you.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. I'm going to start us out with a little bit of tidbit of information, kind of a did you know? You might not know, and Patti, you might have forgotten. Patti and I met way back.
I do remember.
She had awesome shoes is really how the conversation started. But
she brings it.
2007, Patti. We were happened to be honored as two of Pennsylvania's best 50 women in business. It was a crazy high gear moment for me.
Of course.
That is where we met. I unearthed a photo of us recently from that event. And I thought it was just a cool reflection of where we've come, 14 years later? Look where you've taken Centric Bank over the 1 billion asset mark, 1.2 billion, is it now?
Yes.
Grew the bank to 135, 37 employees. I think that says something about Pennsylvania, that we really are a great business environment for women who bring it, and we have high gear ideas and take our innovation to the next level. So kudos to you on that.
Well,
honor.
and one of the gravitas parts of it, and Patti probably isn't going to say it, she's very modest, very humble, but she's one of the most powerful women in finance in the
Banking,
country.
Yep.
And when you think about that from nothing to that, in that industry, with the big banks, with the competitive, finding that niche. So it is astounding, and we don't need to qualify. It's an enormous accomplishment for a woman. It's astounding for anyone who would have accomplished it. So let's just get that out of the way, without qualifying that. So
great. So our theme, Patti, is savvy, spirited stories of success.
Oh, love that.
And you are an incredible success story, but I know that there's so much more below the surface. As an incredible woman in business, one of the 25 most powerful women in banking in the United States, you're a role model. Many women have followed your trajectory. You probably would be the first to say, it wasn't all roses getting from where you started to 2021. Can you give us a little backstory on how would you define the grit part of your journey, and what kind of skills did you need to reach the executive leadership that you have?
Oh, happy to share that. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk about that, but I'll
These
think
go
about
quick. This
we'll
will
bring
about
you back.
yes,
It's our
yeah.
show. We can do whatever we want.
Sure, happy to do so. It's funny as sometimes as you think back, it seems like yesterday in some ways, but other days it seems it's been so long. But you're right. No, it hasn't been all roses. And, sometimes, I think people think that it was an easy path. Oh my gosh, far from it.
Right.
Not an easy path. And, when I think back and, some of the beginning days as, the four of us were looking, we were raising the funds,
Yeah.
we were, to acquire the bank. And, when I look at it now, that was the easy time. It didn't seem so at the time
Right,
to
right.
raise $12 million over 58 days and to close, a transaction
Yeah.
on a financial institution in less than 120 days. And as you put up your own at-risk monies, knowing if you
Yeah.
don't do it and you don't complete it, you lose it all.
Oh my.
Me personally, what I liquidated, it was the bulk of what my assets, of course, other than my home, things
Right.
like that. So it's believing in yourself, but as I look at it today, that was the easy part. From there, after we rebranded the bank,
Right.
it was turning around the bank. It was a troubled financial institution, and it was about a year or so before the financial crisis hit.
Yeah.
So
Not
what?
exactly the best
My
landscape to do that.
No, my crystal ball probably wasn't very.
A little cloudy.
Yeah, it was a little cloudy. And so looking at that, would I have done that again, today, knowing all those things? I have no doubt I would have. Would there
Right.
be some things, sure, you do different? I think anybody, as you have the clearest of visions, the Monday morning quarterbacking,
right.
but, through the time, navigating those challenges, those hurdles, so navigating through a financial crisis, and knowing there was one particular time, knowing as we were under an enforcement action, from the prior institution and working to exit that. And we thought we had that all accomplished and all resolved, and the financial crisis hit. And you couldn't get a hold of your bank regulator.
No playbook for that.
No, and it was the point of, you were too small to matter because there were bigger fish to fry, and that's where their focus and time and attention was on, and of course thinking about what failures could happen at the largest of banks,
Right.
and you understand that maybe of a more logically way, where they needed to invest their time, but I
Yeah.
knew for Centric, we needed to get out of this enforcement. We had elevated capital and
Yeah.
all other constraints. It was in handcuff.
Right, right.
But it was the goal of making it a safe and sound bank, right? And we believed that we rectified all that. So once I knew that path, we had a detour in the road.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out what the path was. And from that path, it was, turning around. Is it changing a bank charter, which isn't an easy thing
Right.
to do, but knowing that we had to do that in order to make the bank a success. So I'd say, that was a big challenge.
Yeah.
And it was truly a key to, unlocking to making Centric's, helping us grow, and maybe really that pathway and the difference maker of, were we successful, or would we eventually maybe had to shut our doors
Yeah.
that we couldn't continue to grow. But during the course of it, and overall, when I think of more of some personal challenges, you think about being a female CEO in a highly male-dominated industry. There were challenges amongst the ways. And, first of all, you take a look amongst your colleagues and your peers. And sometimes, maybe at different trade events, conferences, and you're next to the only female.
Sure.
In PA, there's about 5% females, and that's similar through the whole U.S.
For bank CEOs, the
That's
5%.
correct. That's correct. At first, some of my male colleagues were not very welcoming in there.
I'm
but
shocked. I'm joking.
but you needed to have the thick skin,
Yes.
and to have those calluses. And I guess I was fortunate; I had some calluses built up,
Yeah.
over the years. But you had to have the thick skin to keep going back and to continue to be involved. And I did. And even though there may have been, as you proceed to talk to people
Yeah.
that may have answered your questions and walked away from you, and this happened on and on and on. But you know what? It was kind of like a boomerang. I kept going back, and I ended up forming some really strong relationships. But at times, over the years and meetings, you would feel that a bit. You're talking to prospective individuals, maybe those who don't know you, and you get the question, so what branch are you in charge of? So some of those things, but you have to have resilience,
Right.
and you have to have a thick skin,
Right.
and not to let those things bother you. So I think, those are some of the challenges along the way. You need to be confident in yourself and exude the confidence. Maybe if you don't even feel that on the inside, at all, you need to exude that confidence. You need to, you're the CEO, and you need to exude that
Oh, yeah.
confidence, and you need to bring it every single day, and you need to bring that game face.
Are
And
you brave? Are you acting brave? Because 100% of your organization is looking at you, and no one's looking at you more closely than you're looking at you.
Right.
Right. No one is a tougher judge of women, in my opinion, than ourselves.
Right.
Right. On so many different levels. So looking at that grit, did you always want to be in banking? Was that something that you migrated to? Was it something that you're 5 years old? I want to be a banker, or how did
Yes.
that happen?
It's funny you asked that, Annie, and no, I didn't want to be a banker. So my goals as I was growing up never was, I want to be a banker when I grow up. I want to be a CEO. No, it was not. And there was actually two paths of something that I really wanted to do. First and foremost, I wanted to be a pediatrician.
Isn't that awesome?
And that was where my passion
Really?
was. That is what I wanted to do.
I did not know that about Patti
Yes.
Husic.
The pediatrician was one, and you know what was instrumental in helping me change my mind. My parents, more so, I'd say my father, and from him, they were very realistic, very practical individuals. My father, especially grew up through the Depression area, so it was about being practical. It was thinking about something that very debt adverse, all those things.
At that point that women could do.
And it wasn't
Right.
necessarily they were always supportive that you could do anything that you wanted. But
That's huge.
They were supportive of that. Both of them didn't go
Yeah.
to college. My parents, my father quit school when he was in 5th grade because his father died, and to support his family.
That's amazing.
And the strength there, but he always supported us, my sister and I, and he wanted a better life, wanted us to go to college, but, it was always about stability and, stability. And for him, thought that I was great in math. And he says, I think accounting is a great field that, you should explore, that I think you'd do well in it. If you're CPA, people always need somebody who's taking care of their
Right.
money and helping businesses, individuals. And so I still pursued on that path. I never forget the day different college, booklets came home, and I was requesting them, and one was from University of Pennsylvania, and that so happened that day he got the mail. And so he was glancing through it and glanced to the tuition page, and I was very fortunate. My parents had paid for my education, and he threw it out and said, "I'm not going to pay for this." And he said, "You need to seek another occupation." Brought it up again. Well, my other idea, so this was my second idea, and before it was vogue, I wanted to be a wedding planner before I knew what a wedding planner was. I wanted to have a bridal
Okay,
shop.
I'm gobsmacked for the second time.
This
second
is
time.
did you know about Patti
Yeah.
Husic? Because nobody will know those two tidbits
And
there.
it brings into light the show of how would we know if we weren't asking,
Right.
Yeah.
And this is so fascinating.
To me, a little bit again about me, I'm a romantic. When I think about being to help somebody at the key and the heart of the day of where they want to spend the rest of their
Yeah,
lives
right,
with
right,
someone.
right. Special.
And to me, I wanted to do back then, it wasn't just helping them with a bridal dress there. It was to do the whole thing before I knew
whole
it was
experience.
a wedding planner. I wanted to be the person helping that day be so memorable. To be at that. And that again was let's take a look back at the accounting. And you know what? I was one who was, for the most part, I was the good daughter. I listened to my parents. For the most part, I did. Every now and then veered off, but I did. And, I went to high school, Bishop McDevitt. I took accounting classes, did well in those. I did well academically, very well. And so I finally said, "Okay, Dad, I hear you. That's the path that I'm going to proceed with." And that is the main reason that I changed. And, am I unhappy that I did those things? No, I'm not. I mean, I, started my career out in, with a CPA firm, and I loved it. It gave me an opportunity to work primarily in banking,
Yeah.
auditing banks, but so many other different organizations, and, helped you, you had an opportunity to, meet,
Businesses.
other businesses, but banks, but it was, municipalities, et cetera, but also to learn to adapt really quickly and to understand their systems, and which I think really helped sharpen those skill sets that you had. which then led me into banking. But the funniest point is my parents just absolutely, when I was leaving to go to banking, and it was tough to leave the CPA firm. I loved Greenawalt and Company. Mike Greenawalt was a huge, huge mentor
That's
to
not an
me.
easy test to just
Yeah.
pass either,
Yeah.
which, I'm like allergic to tests and
Yes.
stuff. But
Me
wow,
too.
that's a tough
is.
test.
But Mike took me under his wing and primarily worked on all banks there, had other things, and it was really hard to leave.
Yeah.
He was my first, career mentor, in the workplace. And I remember, it's funny, talking to my parents again and the encouragement to move on to banking, their perception, they loved banking. They felt it was a very honorable career. And that comparison, not that CPAs and accounting wasn't, they were so proud. They loved to go to the banks. They did. They were one of those who went so often, and I still can sit here and see that they're not here, but with us anymore. But the face is beaming when I said I was going to join a bank.
You can hear it.
That's
you
awesome.
can hear it today in you.
So the grit from you clearly is a DNA. You inherited that from both parents, and I know your grandparents were first generation immigrants.
That's correct.
So that kind of, your father only having an education to say 5th grade, and then I know that he worked several jobs, and his immersion into you and your sister's life to say, just steering you different ways. That's amazing. Another special part of this story that hasn't been quite revealed yet is you're doing this and growing the bank. Your skin in the game is an extraordinary risk. I know, because I know you, that there was no plan B for that, but you are a young single mother while you are doing this. I think that is fascinating. First of all, any women out there listening, don't forget your high gear goals. You made it happen. Talk us through a little bit of that journey. What were you feeling at the time when you're one of the only female co-founders of a bank and then you launch it? Like, how crazy scared were you?
It's funny, and you didn't have time then to be afraid.
Good point.
You didn't have time to be afraid. I remember there were certain things that, I did. I questioned myself, and I think a lot of women do, that if you don't check every single box, you sit and you question, can I really do this?
That's a good point.
And you know what? The things that you need, and when I think about the skill sets and things, I think you can teach yourself. So, for example, my career, I wasn't a commercial lender where you see, a number of CEOs come up in banking. They were a commercial lender. I wasn't a commercial lender, but knowing that I needed to know how to make loans, number one, the meeting with customers and prospects, but the whole behind the scenes with the banking, what you need to know to evaluate, how you structure, all those things. Right. What I did is I taught myself at night, so that I don't want to be in a room and saying, I didn't know what I was doing. So those skills you could teach yourself. But the other things that I felt that I had that were taught foundationally by again, going back to my parents, and maybe it necessarily wasn't true when I say career advice about truly in the workplace, but what they taught me was, first of all, it's about, then we didn't have the word grit, right? But it was about, being resilient. It was to work hard, to have that work ethic, the integrity, and the thing of never, ever giving up. And if I didn't have those skill sets and that really ingrained in me, I should say, and learned, and I've seen that, from both of my parents, I don't believe I would have been able to survive with that. Again, skill sets, you can teach yourself how to, the background to make a loan. I mean, I knew, financials, which is key. You knew how to impact the bottom line, what's going to impact your revenue, your expenses, and how to, deliver a return. I knew that. I knew risk management. I knew IT. But the things I didn't know, for me, a bit of a perfectionist, for me, I needed to ensure at nights, that's what I was doing, nights, weekends, and I was getting myself up to speed. I didn't want to feel embarrassed in a room that I didn't know. And maybe that's something that was more on me, that I wanted to ensure, hey, I knew what I was doing. And I did. And then I to whatever, how many hours, not only in the day, I went home and worked for hours and probably for a lot of years, doing that 4 hours of sleep.
And the intangible is what enabled you to do that. And we talk about this all the time. Women, and you are a perfectionist, we all are. We're leaders. We're constantly risking, right? Every single decision, every single hire, every single promotion, every single aspect of what we do is under a microscope. If you're a leader, and we all are. And so what I sort of like, you're a mom too, and you want to be a great mom. You don't want to go, oh, that's good enough over here. Right? I mean,
No.
And so let's not forget, to Anne's point to start that, is you have a son.
I do.
And we have one miracle son. And I constantly say to people, the deltas, Anne has grandbabies and my son is 16. And I'm, for now, like, gonna be home when he's home, and I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say nope, not yet. Timing isn't right, and so talk about that, because in your heart, and I'll just tell everyone, you have a really big heart. What was that reconciliation, and how do we as women say we're not going to be perfect at everything every day?
That's the $1 million question. It is, because every day I still struggle with that. I do. I'm not going to say, some days are better than others at that.
Retrospectively, Patti, in other words, back then.
Well,
But
then
you're saying looking back.
Looking back,
You're saying
correct.
looking back.
Oh, sure.
You have a wildly successful son.
Right. Oh, and
That you're enormously proud of.
I sure am. I am. He is my one and only. He's my baby, even though he's 31, but he's my 6'2" baby, right? But
Hey, cheers to young men. Can we just say that? We have 5 sons between
yes.
the 3 of us here.
We love men.
Cheers to
Yes.
to really bright young men.
yes. But
With strong moms and women in business.
so it's been since, I was a single mom since my son was 4. And so it's been a
So
long
that's the
number of
entire
years.
growth of the bank. The whole time.
And even before.
You're
before my career
you're
journey.
juggling as you're deciding, I'm going to
Yes.
invest the retirement, which is his future too.
Yes.
Back then. I mean, that's major.
She's it.
That's talk about grit, Patti. Oh my word.
But over the years, sure, you think about, things you needed to get done. But in the end, I remember some days, him being in a sleeping bag, in the office with me till I needed to get things done. And that, was when he was younger at a past, at past when I was at Pennsylvania State Bank, when I was in on Saturdays. I mean, it was one thing I remember. He remembers it. He used to help Bill Freeman, who was the CEO there. He would help him, hand out. He went to the post office with him, help him deliver, out, the mail.
Yeah.
But I think as a single mom, you're so hard on it. And not just single moms. I think moms, that work outside the home
Right.
are hard on ourselves. It's that guilt. The guilt some days that, you think, am I there enough? I'm not the mom there that's home after school.
Right.
And, when he was younger, think again, my parents helped out so much. And so did, my, mother-in-law and father-in-law, they helped out so much there. And I'm so grateful for that. But, as the continuation and the getting to the teenage years of such important years.
Well, he was an athlete too, correct?
He was.
So
He
you had
played
games
football
to go to
and baseball. And I remember, and again, it goes to that perfectionist. It's like, well, I'm not going to miss a game ever. Well, you tried your hardest. I'll never forget there was one game, and it was a football game, and it was in State College. And it was I'm trying to think, it was a JV game, but it was, it's earlier in the afternoons. And my goal was to get there, and there's something that kept coming up. Well, I raced to get there, hit construction, got lost.
No.
I made it with 10 minutes to spare in the game. That's it. So, and it's funny, and as we're so hard on ourselves, and that, you want to be there every single moment, you think, gosh, they're going to never forget this. It's going to impact them. And you know what my son said to me? Mom, why did you drive all this way for a short period of time? He goes, that's okay. He said, you're there for the majority, if not, the majority of my things. And he said, I know you're there with me in spirit. And, he says, don't be so hard on yourself. So he actually, taught me that.
Right.
And that, but it's hard to think, I can't be there for every single thing. And, I wanted to be the super mom. I didn't want, to have that child who's going to think about in his 30s and thinking, gosh, I really wish my mom was there.
Right.
But, other things that retrospect, then I would think, that was tough on him and I'm asking him to do these things. But today he thanked me for it. So he was probably one of the few kids in his school growing up at either Holy Name or at Bishop McDevitt. He was cooking.
Yeah.
He was helping do laundry.
skills.
And, or is it cutting the grass? And he was such an incredible helper to me, the level of support. There might have been some grumbling at the time
Yeah.
saying, none of my friends have to do this, Mom. And I said, I need your help.
Yeah.
But he says it today when he went away to college. He said, his other, as he's cooking in their apartment, et cetera. And he says, my other roommates didn't know how to cook certain things. And he said, so thank you. And he always, where he says it today, it says, he's so supportive and he appreciates, the things that he, learned along the way. But along those years, I didn't see that coming out of it. I was thinking that, he wasn't having that normal, quote unquote, childhood.
Yeah.
That, and having a more carefree, and did it force him to grow up sooner, than most kids did. But in so many ways, I think today that helped him.
Yeah.
And I say this often. I heard it in a homily in mass. Says your rear view mirror is the size it is, and your windshield is the size that it is. And you look in your rear view mirror every once in a while to know what's back there. But wow, you're driving this way. And I will tell you that the relationship I have with my son, and unequivocally I know the relationships you both have with your sons, is that of an adult now. And you can't manufacture that. You can't go back and get a make good and a do-over. And we have extraordinary relationships with our son. And honestly, Patti, from the very beginning, I thought, I think if the relationship is what I really hope it will be, he wants me to be happy. He wants me to be fulfilled, and to thrive. And it's just about when I travel now, is it good? Here's when I'll be back. Here's what, and I think there's just been an enormous amount of independence around that. And I just wouldn't want you as a woman to ever go back and say that could be better, because the proof today is the relationship you have with him as an adult. He's still, my son is still one of the most interesting people I'd ever want to be with.
And Annie, you're exactly right. Through it, as, going through it, you had the questions and where you doubted yourself and the guilt. But no, today, the man that he's become, the relationship of how close him and I are, and as I hear from maybe some other friends, et cetera, I don't hear to that level of closeness. And they even say to me that the bond that you have, and we do, we have such a strong bond. And
Exactly.
the talking, what he
Yes.
shares,
Yeah.
with me, when he has a challenge, not to say he's, somebody who's running to, his mom all the time, but especially when there's those key points in his life, he talks them through, and he wants, I want to hear what you think, Mom. And that
he
is
has deep respect for you.
It is. And, he is always, he always tells me, he says, I'm so proud of you, Mom. And,
There you go.
that just,
There you go.
your heart, how much it touches your heart and makes your heart so happy. So no, I wouldn't change it, and the bond, it is, it's priceless to me.
He's been on the entire journey.
He has.
And to really just look out at the significance of that. And I, at one point, depending on when we drove to school, his entire, now he drives himself, which I just missed the time. And I would say to him one morning, well, I don't know a lot about that. He goes, Mom, I talk to you more than any of my friends talk to their mom. And I went, boom, all right, I'll take it.
Yes.
Right. Because it'll never be enough.
Right.
Just say something and I'm riveted. So
It was tough when he went away to school, I have to say, because, he was my only one when he left, because it was him and
He was
I.
probably your biggest fan
All
at home
those
while
years.
you're, rising to the
Yes.
top.
boy, that's coming. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not gonna.
It was tough emotionally, and
bittersweet.
it was a lot of those tears would just start happening, and he's like, "Oh, Mom, this is embarrassing. Please stop." But it was a little, and finally, and what I can appreciate, because we can have this conversation. So it was, I don't know, after the first week at school or so. And I may have been texting a lot or calling a lot. Maybe, who knows? Not going to actually quantify that. He finally said, Mom, he said, I miss you too. He said, but, maybe we could keep it to X, and he's a little over the top.
Because they're never not going to answer you.
Yeah.
You're right.
They have too much love and respect for you. Yeah. So
I pulled it back.
This has gone incredibly fast.
We're at time. Yeah.
And we say with every guest, you have to come back. So Patti now has to come back too, because
I haven't even scratched the surface.
Well, Patti has thrown some like little tiny grenades out there of deeper things about your life that nobody will know. So you heard it here first on Grit and Gravitas. We can say
well, and your bravery to share it is really the vulnerability around what women don't do enough of the time,
right?
In my opinion,
agreed.
And so we just need to be more human.
So we ask every guest, Patti, to share one piece of high gear advice. So it might be something you learned along this amazing path to founding Centric Bank and your CEO in the C-suite, or it could be something you would tell your younger self. So what we're interested to hear, what would be your piece of advice?
So are you talking about growth personally, business-wise, or either or?
What comes to mind immediately? Which one?
There's a little bit of both there, and if
we'll take both.
Okay, great. I say the first on the personal note, don't have the guilt.
Yeah.
Don't doubt yourself.
Don't let it rob you.
Don't, because you know what? There's no redos. Don't have the guilt though, and beat yourself up along the way, because it does. It takes a lot out of you, and nobody's perfect. And trying to be the perfect in every single area of your life, you can't. I think you got to do the best you're going to do, and to the things that matter the most, your family. First in your career, to me, that's first and foremost. And I wish somebody would have said, don't feel guilty over that, because you're doing a great job.
Good.
And number two, when I think about a career, within the career advice, and as I said before, women wait till they check every box.
Yes.
Don't wait till you check every box. And I think from there, you have a number of those, experience things, but there's others you can grow. You can learn, you can grow into, and you have those other qualities that that grit, that perseverance, that you'll have the work ethic and pursue your dreams and work hard to get there. Don't hesitate and to make that ask of someone. So don't hesitate and say, well, gosh, I didn't check every box. I'm going to wait till I do. You might be waiting your entire career.
Right.
Don't wait. Believe in yourself and take the courage and the leap of faith and put your hat in the ring and make the ask.
Make it happen.
You heard it here at Grit and Gravitas.
Love many, trust few, always row your own canoe.
Savvy, spirited stories of success. It doesn't get more successful in Pennsylvania for Patti Husic, President CEO of Centric Bank. So we're going to have you back. We hope you'll join us again and have a High Gear Friday.
Powerhouse.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Patti.
you. Thrilled to be here and can't wait to come back.
Good. Thanks. Thanks for listening. It's our desire that these stories will bring energy, ideas, and fresh thinking that you can use today. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram, and have a high gear day.